So what usually the candidates do, they mimic the topper DAF and they end up having a FOMO and end up being anxious because they can't replicate that. Imagine 20D being blank, which is hobby, which is extracurricular activity. I mean, student has done nothing with respect to that. So naturally, of course, because of his good mains, he qualified and he got a rank in late 800s. But his interview score was around 150 or 160. For a lot of you, cracking UPSC mains is the first major breakthrough of your life. And you always knew that you had it in you, despite all the setbacks you faced in school and college days. But look at the irony. In the interview stage where you feel that you have arrived, you have to look back to those college and school days again to figure out a hobby, to figure out an achievement for yourself, to defend your interview candidature. And this is tough. So what usually the candidates do, they mimic the topper DAF and they end up having a FOMO and end up being anxious because they can't replicate that. So we had a ranker last year. He scored a rank in some 800s. What he did, his case was pretty much similar to this. It was his first biggest breakthrough of his life. And he practically didn't do anything in school and college. So he had nothing to show in 20 ABCD. And imagine 20D being blank, which is hobby, which is extracurricular activity. I mean, student has done nothing with respect to that. So naturally, of course, because of his good mains, he qualified and he got a rank in late 800s. But his interview score was around 150 or 160. So he came back to me, he realized that this is the only issue he was facing, because if he had filled the DAF properly, the 20 ABCD properly, he would probably go 200 or 190. So now he came and asked for solutions. What he was suggesting on his own, that should I cook up few hobbies that I am not naturally into, because he has seen topper DAF having those hobbies. For instance, astrology. Now I asked him, okay, what will you write in astrology? Will you write about the zodiacs, or probably read about Sadesati, etc.? But what if they go deep and ask you about a Rahu Mahadasha, a Saturn Mahadasha, the transits and aspects? How does that happen with respect to houses? What will you do? Because people who genuinely follow astrology, they are passionate about these things and they will be able to defend it. What if they ask you to do it live, probably through face or through palm? Would you be able to do it? So of course, his answer was no. So this is what I suggested him, that instead of creating fake hobbies, instead of thinking that you will master some hobbies in next 3 months, please go back to your optional, please go back to your graduation. For instance, his optional was PSIR. So I asked him to read about foreign policy, probably watch podcasts about foreign policy, or pick up some themes with respect to the neighborhood of India, or in domestic politics, you can call yourself as an electoral political enthusiast, something like that, which you will be able to defend and which will also have a spillover effect in your DAF. So this is exactly what you have to do. And the golden trap of DAF 2 filling is that you are replicating a topper's DAF and you think that you will be able to fake few hobbies, which you really can't. So that's the first mistake you should avoid while filling DAF 2. Second important mistake which aspirants usually do is about picking up wrong states and picking up wrong cadres, because they have heard something about these states, or they feel that state is big, state is diverse, but it doesn't work like that. While filling the states and cadre, you have to keep 3 pointers in mind. First is your politics of that state. Is the government and opposition rotating powers frequently after 5 years or 10 years? For instance, Haryana or Rajasthan, you would see in these states, Congress and BJP tend to rotate powers after 5-10 years, which is a good state for a bureaucrat, because you will be able to manage your stakeholders very well. Second aspect that you have to keep in your mind while filling this is the bureaucracy of that state. For instance, Gujarat. Now, Gujarat is pretty much a capitalist-driven state, or entrepreneur-driven state. So your role as a bureaucrat is to facilitate the entrepreneurship happening in the state. While in Bihar, the state depends a lot on social welfare, a lot on schemes. You just saw in the elections that 10,000 rupees were given to women, and you are the guys who are going to implement that. So you see the stark differences of bureaucracy operating in both these states. And you have to know what mindset you really are. Are you an entrepreneur-driven person, or are you a person who would want to go and connect with the last mile on ground? So, of course, use that criteria as well. And last point, while doing this is always the role of chief minister. So there are certain states which are chief minister driven states. You will always see them fighting with the center, or in a federal issue will always arise after sooner or later. So in these states, if you are not aligned with the chief minister's ideology or a chief minister party, then the state PCS officers will gain advantage over you and they will be promoted to higher ranks, while you will be given less important ministries. So use these 3 pointers in mind when you fill the states and cadre. Otherwise, you will do massive blunders if you just look after diversity or size or other areas, or standard of living also for that matter. Then third important aspect that you should be keeping in mind while filling DAF 2 is service order preference. Now, a lot of the big fours and the usual services, but the blunder you do is in keeping services like DANIX and DANIPS or other Group B services in top 10, because you feel that you will be an SDM officer in Delhi and you will be able to do much better because you are directly a kind of a collector. But understand that the transition period to an IAS from DANIX is at least 10, 15, 20 years. And you will be commanded by the same officer who has cleared the same exam. And just because you kept DANIX or DANIPS in top 10, he gets a chance to give you command and give you orders, which you may not like because you have cleared the same exam. So there is a kind of power tussle, which is a reality as human beings. We have to, we deal with these things. It might not look important to you at this point of time, but when you are there in these services, you will see that Group B people won't sit with Group A, and that's the reality. So understand, be very practical about picking these services, because see, if you have to pick up DANIX only, then why not go and clear UPPCS and become SGM in that state? I mean, you will have better chances to be promoted to IAS, and you know that you have cleared a state PCS exam also. So please don't do these mistakes, keeping DANIX, DANIPS or other Group B above Group A because you want to work in Delhi only, or you're less aware about ministries like trade or information because their roles have changed a lot. I don't know if people know that trade services are also the track to diplomacy guys, because once the trade deals are signed, they are the ones responsible to do all the paperwork. You can send delegations to WTO, you get that maroon passport and some diplomatic privileges also. But people don't know about that service, and they will end up putting that probably at the end. In the information service, a lot of you will advise that Prasar Bharati Doordarshan control kar rahe ho, but wo zamane chale gaye. You know the power of social media. Every ministry, every government needs a media presence. So you are the ones who are giving license to the journalists. So in the contemporary times, look how media has changed, and would you want to be there, right? So please keep these factors in mind, and these 3 things are universal, and I'm telling you these things based on time-tested formulas. The last thing is very personal, which is filling up your 20 ABCD theme-wise. Like I gave you the example of that ranker, right? Now for that, he has to sit with me so that I can tell him that these are the spillover effects of your DAF. You can find these areas, and don't you really go in faking your DAF. So see, you should not avoid these DAF 2 filling mistakes. For that, I'll be doing a YouTube live tomorrow. DAF filling is open from 13 to 27 November. Please fill your DAF properly. That's the aim, because a larger chunk, or in fact most of the interview, depends on this DAF only.